And I'm not sure if anybody that watches this channel pays attention or listens to Bill Maher's podcast. I don't even remember what it's called. Like Club Chaos or I don't know, something. I'll look it up. So a couple of weeks ago, Bill Maher had Dr. Phil on as his guest. Club Random, I think, is the Club Random. Club Chaos, that was actually pretty close. So I'm gonna play the clip that I think is relevant. It's like 5 minutes long, but I'm gonna pause it a couple of times throughout because they talk about a few different things that I want to bring up.
I stay non-political because I think there's idiocy on both sides.
There is.
Yeah.
Let's also pause a moment to say you put in the same breath, you don't like this president and you didn't like the last one. They are very different people, and one of them is much more of a threat to the Republic, and that would be the 45th. Would you not agree?
Well,
come on. Threat to the Republic? Joe Biden? No. Joe Biden is a return to normalcy, yet a Democrat who is, yes, too much ensorcelled by his fringe left. He will not ever tell them to sit down and shut up. But I will take that bargain, much as I don't like it and it's bitter. I will take that bargain over Trump. Come on.
So right there where Bill Maher says that Biden is a return to normalcy, I do think that's right. I just don't think that normalcy is a good thing. It goes back to that quote, the left wing and the right wing are two wings of the same bird. They're all the establishment. That's why your establishment Republicans like the Cheneys, the Romneys, Mitch McConnell, the Bushes, none of them like Donald Trump either, because he was a threat to the establishment. And that's why we got Donald Trump as president in the first place, is because people who came out and were inspired to vote for Barack Obama were not inspired to come out and vote for Hillary Clinton. So they were disenchanted with these establishment figures, so they decided to elect the host of The Apprentice, a businessman, whatever, to change it up. So I don't understand how the return to normalcy is a good thing for anyone except those establishment figures. Even on the left, the progressives, the people that voted for Bernie Sanders, the reason that you were voting for Bernie Sanders was to buck the establishment because they weren't doing anything for you. It was false promises. So you wanted, Bernie was like the DNC outsider. So why would you want the return to normalcy? I also disagree with what Bill Maher just said there too about how Joe Biden never stands up to the leftists in his party, and Bill Maher finds that really annoying. I think Joe Biden doesn't do anything for the leftists in his party. I showed the clip in a previous video on this channel after the black people in South Carolina helped get Joe Biden the primary, after all the Black Lives Matter donations were directed to the Biden campaign coffers. There was, after he got elected, he was speaking to a Black Lives Matter activist, and she asked what he was going to do. Actually, if I remember correctly, might have been she wanted there to be a national database, sort of like how they have the sex offender registry. She was saying that they wanted one for law enforcement officers, so they have a history of excessive force or police brutality, so they can't just get transferred around to other departments, which is a pretty reasonable request. And Biden's response to her is just shut up, I said that Charlottesville was a bad thing, what else do you want from me? So Biden hasn't really done anything for Black Lives Matter, except he did make Juneteenth a paid federal holiday, which only benefits the government. We're just paying for them to have a vacation day. So, big strides there. He didn't do anything for the student loans. They didn't do anything to like codify Roe v. Wade in the law during the first 2 years where they were in control of everything. So I guess like maybe, yeah, he doesn't overtly tell the progressives to shut up. He does dangle the carrot in front of their face that he always snatches out at the last minute. And I guess the fact that he even participates in that charade annoys Bill Maher. But I disagree that he's not, that he does too much for the progressive left.
Hear about politics. You go back to the beginning, and Democrat and Republicans have been in control about 50-50. They've had control of the House and Senate while they were in control of the presidency about 50-50. They've had it not in control 50-50. And look where we are. They both come up about the same place. I don't care about that. I care about our culture.
Okay, I'm disappointed that I can't get you to just out and out say that Trump is a completely different animal than the politics on the left and the right that we both agree is very lacking on both sides.
It begs the
that
question.
He is a completely different element and much more dangerous. I mean, we're talking about some sort of unnatural predator that was introduced into this wild, which was it was a jungle in the first place. But this is a different element. Nobody else has ever tried to not concede an election in this country. If I can't have your faith on that, it's very hard for me to understand where you're coming from on any issue.
That's another lie that Bill Maher just told right there. Make the argument that, well, maybe Hillary did concede her loss. I mean, she spent the next 4 years writing 2 books and going on a paid speaking tour around the country telling everybody how the election was stolen from her. And questioning the results of that election. Also, if you are a Democrat, a lot of them believe that not only did George W. Bush try to steal an election from Al Gore, but he actually was successful. So to say that Trump is a completely different animal, and that's the reason that you cite is not conceding an election, I would think that he's not only is he not a completely different animal, he's not even the worst. Pretty disingenuous to act like Trump is this deviation from business as usual in Washington, D.C. Him lying is not a deviation from business as usual. All politicians lie or exaggerate. Even all the other examples that they've given are things that they either completely made up or took out of context, or like the whole kids in cages thing on the border, him just continuing on the policies from the administration before him. The reaction to him is the deviation, not him.
You've read 1984 how many times?
Once.
You have a good memory.
I mean, it was like college time, but I loved it, and I certainly remember the gist, the Ministry of Truth.
Yeah, and Oceana.
Yes.
The government came in, they said, we're going to tell you what words you can use. We're going to tell you what words you can't use.
Yes.
And if you don't do it right, we're going to unperson you.
I'm all over that.
You remember all that?
I know. And by the way, the Biden administration actually tried to have this year a Ministry of Truth. They almost called it was very close to that. I can't remember the name.
It was close.
It was close, and it was exactly what that is. I agree.
But even beyond that, let me tell you this.
But you think that's a bigger problem than Donald Trump?
No, I don't.
Oh,
because I don't think politics are the big problem. What I'm telling you is this. That's happening again, but it's not the government doing it. We're doing it to each other. This cancel culture bullshit, we're doing what 1984 had Oceania, the government, doing. We're
Yes,
doing to each other.
I understand. I couldn't agree more.
It's the culture
Let me-
that's the problem
let me
here.
tell
You
you-
want
I do disagree with Dr. Phil with what he says right there. That I do think that regardless of which party is doing it, anybody who is behaving the way that the government did in 1984, those are the bad guys. You can call yourself liberals, you can call yourself Democrats, Republicans, conservatives, whatever name you want to assign yourself doesn't matter if you are an authoritarian. There can be authoritarians on both sides of the political spectrum. So the thing that makes you an authoritarian is the tactics that you use to gain and maintain power. And so the things that we should be concerned about is not Donald Trump doing some undefined, unprecedented thing that nobody can really explain. The danger is when you have people or people in power, and as Bill Maher just correctly points out, it was the Biden administration who is doing a ministry of truth, or I believe what they called it was the Department of Disinformation. So same thing. So you can't acknowledge, well, I guess you can acknowledge it because Bill Maher does this here, but it's very disingenuous to sit there and acknowledge that, yes, it is all the examples I can give of this authoritarian, Orwellian dystopia, they all come from the Biden administration, but I'm going to sit here and insist that Trump is the greater threat, this totally different animal. And then, this is the annoying thing that he tries to do here, is pull the whole, he does this version of agree to disagree, which I do think that there is a time and place to agree to disagree, and it's when everybody agrees on what the facts are, you maybe then just have a different interpretation of what those facts mean. So you're basically saying, yeah, well, neither of us can really prove each other wrong from here on out. It's just our speculation, so we'll just have to agree to disagree on that. In this particular case, what Bill Maher should have done if he was a genuine, honest person is he just should have admitted that, like, hey, you just made some really good points that actually totally contradicted everything that I was saying, and so if you're not going to say that you've changed your mind, at least acknowledge, not leave it at this, like, agree to disagree, but take it as, like, you've given me a lot of things to think about and consider here. But as I'll finish out the video here, Bill Maher does not do that. He refuses to admit that Dr. Phil just made him look like an idiot.
whether it's Biden or Trump or Bush or whoever, that doesn't matter. It's culture.
You know what? One thing you have to have in a friendship, and I hope we're friends now for a long time, is the ability to air your differences and then just move on. Like, this is a microcosm to me of what has to happen in America. But I'm just not where you are and never will be on this Trump thing, and you're not where I am, and that's okay.
I think there are certain things that we have to change about our approach, and this is where the psychological part comes in for me. We've got to stop trying to win arguments and start trying to solve problems. And that is a completely different mindset. Stop trying to win arguments, start trying to solve problems. And then all of a sudden we have to start talking.